What if one act of kindness changed your life forever? Anaya had nothing. No money, no degree, no way out. Just dreams. Then one night she stopped to help a stranger on the street. And within 24 hours, her whole world changed. But when the truth behind that world began to show, she had to face a question that could break anyone. Sit back, take a breath, and step into this captivating tale of courage, conscience, and quiet rebellion, where doing the right thing isn't easy. But it just might be everything. The sun was beginning to set over the crowded rooftops as Anaya wiped her hands on her apron and stepped out of the small provision shop where she worked. She had been on her feet since morning, stocking shelves, sweeping the floor, and packing goods into nylon bags for customers who hardly noticed her. Her salary was tiny, barely enough to buy the medicines her mother needed or a bag of rice to stretch across the week. But it was all she had. At just 17 years old, Anaya carried the weight of a whole household. Her mother, once strong and full of laughter, now lay weak and coughing in their one-room home. The illness had taken her voice to a whisper, her strength to dust. Since their father passed away 2 years ago in a road accident, everything had fallen on Anaya's shoulders. And then there was Chuka, her little brother, barely 9, who still believed she could do anything. But Anaya wasn't so sure. She had finished secondary school last year, top of her class even. Her teachers had called her Dr. Ania because of how well she did in biology, but dreams didn't pay exam fees. The post-secondary exam that would open the door to university and maybe a future in medicine, it cost more than she could afford. Every day she tried to save, but every week something came up: her mother's medication, school shoes for Chuka, kerosene for the stove. So here she was, walking through the dusty back roads of her poor neighborhood, school certificate in her bag. As she passed a group of boys kicking a flattened plastic bottle around like a football, her stomach growled. She hadn't eaten since morning. "Maybe tomorrow I'll eat 2 meals, she mumbled, half laughing, half tired. The sky was already turning orange. She shifted her empty bag from one shoulder to the other and picked up her pace. Her mother would be waiting. Chuka too. She didn't want them to worry. But inside, a question kept echoing. How long can I keep doing this? She didn't have the answer. She didn't have to. She was too busy thinking about how much medicine she could buy with the money she earned today. Just enough to ease her mother's chest pain for a few days, maybe. But the thought made her heart ache. As she passed a quiet junction near an old filling station, something caught her eye. A black SUV, clean, shiny, and clearly not from around here, was parked awkwardly by the roadside. Its engine was running and the driver's door was open. Then she saw him. A well-dressed elderly man wearing a suit slowly stepped out of the car. He looked confused, his face twisted in pain. He took 2 steps, then suddenly clutched his chest. "Ah," he gasped, stumbling. Before Anaya could blink, he collapsed onto the ground, groaning and holding his chest tightly. For a moment, everything stopped. People nearby glanced at him. Some walked faster. Others crossed the road entirely. Maybe he's drunk. It could be a scam. Better mind your business. Anaya stood frozen, her heart pounding. But something inside her refused to move on. She dropped her bag and ran to the man. Sir, can you hear me?" No response, just shallow gasps. His eyes were wide with fear. "Somebody help! Please, he's not okay!" No one came. Her hands shaking, Anaya pulled out her small touchlight phone. The screen was cracked, but it worked. She dialed the emergency number she remembered seeing on a billboard once. "Hello. Yes, please. Someone is dying. He can't breathe. I think it's a heart attack. Yes, by the old filling station. Please come quickly." The voice on the other end was calm, asking her to stay with him and follow instructions. "Place both hands on the chest. Push hard. Keep counting. Don't stop." Anaya knelt on the rough ground, her knees bruising against the gravel. She began CPR. 1, 2, 3, 4. Her arms trembled. Her own heart was racing, but she didn't stop. "Come on, sir. Please, stay with me." Minutes felt like forever. Finally, a distant siren pierced the air. The red and white ambulance turned the corner, its lights flashing like hope. Paramedics rushed out. "Step back, please." Anaya moved away slowly, her hands covered in dust, sweat running down her face. She watched silently as they lifted the man into the ambulance. No one said thank you. No one asked who she was. She just stood there. Then, quietly, she wiped her face, picked up her bag, and turned toward home.
"I did what anyone should do," she whispered. She walked away, her chest still tight, not from fear, but from something else. She reached home just as the sky turned completely dark. She quietly opened the door and stepped inside. A dim lantern sat on the floor beside her mother's mat. The smell of boiled yam hung in the air. Her younger brother Chuka ran to her as usual. "Annie, you're late today." She sighed. Something happened. Her mother sat up slowly, coughing a little. "What is it?" she asked. "You look tired and shaken." Anaya dropped her bag, sat down and told them everything. How the man fell, how nobody helped, how she used her small phone to call for help, how she did CPR just like she'd seen in a movie once. By the time she finished, Chuka's eyes were wide. "So, you saved somebody's life?" "I don't know if I did," Anaya said quietly. "But I tried." Her mother reached out and held her hand. "You did more than many would. You're a good girl, Anaya. You have a good heart." Chuka grinned. "Annie, the lifesaver." She laughed a little, shaking her head. "Let me go and boil water. We still have some gari, right?" Her mother nodded, smiling faintly. For the first time in a long while, their small home felt a little lighter. The sun had barely risen when Anaya stepped outside to sweep the front of the house. She was dressed in her old brown skirt and a blue top, ready to go back to the provision shop. She had tied her scarf and packed her lunch, just a few slices of bread wrapped in paper. As she bent down to pick her broom, she heard the sound of a car pulling up. She looked up. It was a black SUV, the same kind she had seen the day before. Her heart skipped. The door opened, and a tall man stepped out. He wore neat native attire, light blue with brown sandals. His face was calm but serious. He walked up to her and spoke in a polite tone. "Are you Miss Anaya?" Anaya blinked, unsure of what to say at first. She held on to her broom tightly. "Yes, I'm Anaya. Why?" The man gave a small nod. "I've been asked to bring you to see someone, Mr. Williams." Anaya stared at the man in front of her, still holding her broom. "Mr. Williams?" she asked slowly. "Yes," the man nodded. "The man you helped last night. He wants to see you." He reached into his pocket and brought out a neat business card. "I'm Mr. Gabenga, his personal assistant. I came on his instruction." Anaya looked at the black SUV, then back at the man. Her heart was beating fast. But he was unconscious. How did he know it was me? Mr. Gabenga smiled slightly, almost like he had heard the question before. "Chief has his ways. If he wants to find something or someone, he will. Cameras, phone records, eyewitnesses. He has people who handle these things." Anaya stood in silence. Part of her wanted to run back inside the house. This was too much, too strange. Who just shows up with a big car and says, "Come with me"? "Please," Mr. Gabenga added. "Chief is very grateful. He would like to thank you in person. Nothing bad will happen to you. I give you my word." She looked down at her skirt, dusty from sweeping. She didn't feel ready, but something in the man's voice felt honest. "Can I tell my mother?" she asked. "Of course." She turned quickly and ran into the house. "Mama," she called. "They said the man I helped wants to see me." Her mother looked worried at first. "Are you sure it's safe?" "The man is his assistant. He said it's just to say thank you. His name is Chief Andrew Williams, the man from the road." Her mother nodded slowly. "Go, but call me when you get there." "I don't have airtime. I'll borrow someone's phone and call you then," her mother said with a small smile. A few minutes later, Anaya was sitting in the soft back seat of the SUV. She had never seen a car so clean, so smooth inside. She didn't even know cars could be this quiet on the road. She sat with her hands on her lap, peeking out the window as they drove past places she had never been. Wide roads, tall buildings, big shops with air conditioning. It felt like a different world. A world where people didn't worry about buying gari or skipping medicine to pay rent. Anaya didn't say much during the ride. She didn't know what to expect. The SUV slowed as they reached the top of a hill. The road curved gently, lined with flowering trees and silent gates that led to homes Anaya had only seen in magazines. Her eyes widened when she saw the house they were entering. The gates slid open smoothly, revealing a huge cream-colored mansion with glass windows and a fountain dancing in front. There were neat lawns, trimmed hedges, and cars parked in a corner like toys on display. She had never seen anything like it. Her slippers made no sound on the smooth tiles as Mr. Benga led her through tall wooden doors into the house. Inside, everything gleamed: marble floors, white walls, paintings that looked like they belonged in a museum. She felt small and out of place. They entered a quiet sitting room where a man sat on a wide chair, wearing a clean white kaftan. His face looked tired but alert. He held a walking stick in one hand. His eyes were sharp. "Good afternoon, sir," Anaya said softly, keeping her hands close to her sides. The man looked at her for a long second. "So you're the girl," he said, his voice deep and serious. Anaya nodded slowly. "Yes, sir. I'm Anaya." He leaned forward slightly. "I'm Chief Andrew Williams. People call me Chief Dyke in business, but that's not important now. What matters is, you saved my life." Anaya looked down, feeling shy. "I just helped. Anyone could have—" "No," Chief Williams cut in, his tone firm. "You didn't walk away like the others. You acted. And I don't forget people who helped me." There was a pause. Then he nodded toward Mr. Gabenga, who handed him a small folder. Chief opened it, glanced at the paper, then looked back at her. "You're not in school?" "No, sir. I finished secondary school last year, but I haven't written my post-exams. We couldn't afford it." He said nothing for a moment. Then he spoke again, slowly. "You'll be going back. When school resumes, you'll return. I'll take care of your fees, your books, everything." Anaya blinked. "Sir?" "Until then," he continued, "you will work here. I'm offering you a role as a personal assistant trainee. You'll be trained, you'll earn, and you'll learn." Anaya's mouth opened slightly. "But I didn't go to university. I've never worked in a place like that." "That's why we'll start now," he said simply. "You learn now. When it's time for school, you go back, one thing at a time." She stood frozen, words stuck in her throat. This was more than help. It was a door she never knew could open. "Thank you, sir," she finally whispered. I don't even know what to say." "Say yes," he said. And she did. The next morning, Anaya stood in front of a tall glass building with butterflies in her stomach. Williams Holdings. The name was written in gold letters above the entrance. The building looked like it touched the sky. People in suits walked in and out, holding phones, carrying files, moving fast like they had no time to waste. She looked down at her new outfit, a neat blue blouse, dark trousers, and simple black shoes. Mr. Gabenga had handed her the clothes that morning in a white bag. "You're part of this world now," he had said. "Walk like you belong." She wasn't sure she believed it yet, but she was here. Inside, everything was cold and clean. The floors shone, the air smelled like perfume and paper. Computers clicked, phones rang, everyone moved with purpose. Anaya followed Benga to the third floor, where a tall woman in glasses stood waiting. "Anaya, meet Miss Lamy," Benga said. "She's your mentor. You'll shadow her for now." "Nice to meet you, Ma," Anaya said quickly. Lamy didn't smile at first. She just nodded. "Follow me." That first day felt like 10 days in one. She learned how to answer phones, how to file documents, how to speak politely even when her feet were hurting. Everything moved fast. Everyone spoke in English that was quick and serious. By lunchtime, her head was spinning. But she didn't give up. Day after day, she showed up early. She listened. She watched. She asked questions. And slowly, people began to notice. The receptionist, Tosin, who once ignored her, started waving. Mr. Ekena in finance began saying, "Good job," after each task. and Miss Lamy, who never smiled, now nodded with quiet approval when Anaya got something right without being told. She started attending small meetings. She saw how teams worked together, how plans were made, how money moved. It was like learning the rules of a secret game. Back home, life was changing too. Mama had started treatment, thanks to the money from Anaya's new job. The coughing had reduced. She could sit up and laugh again, even cook sometimes. Chuka came home from school shouting, "My sister works in an office," like it was the biggest thing in the world. Anaya would smile, but inside, she still felt like it was all a dream. A few weeks ago, she was standing in dust, selling biscuits at the shop. Now she was walking past air-conditioned boardrooms, holding folders and learning words she never used before. Strategy, outreach, compliance. She was getting used to the rhythm of her new life. Every morning, she arrived at Williams Holdings before most people. She swept her workspace with her eyes, not a broom, making sure everything was neat and ready. Her notebook was always open, her pen always in hand. She had grown used to wearing office clothes, simple, clean, nothing fancy. Still, each time she looked in the mirror, she almost didn't recognize herself. She looked like someone else, someone becoming, and everyone was starting to notice. Team leaders praised her. "She learns fast. She doesn't need to be told twice. That girl is going somewhere." Even Miss Lamy, who hardly gave compliments, once whispered after a presentation, "You're a natural." Anaya smiled all the way home that day. Her work involved sitting in on meetings, taking notes, helping prepare for events, and learning how the company connected with the public. She asked questions when she didn't understand, and people respected her for it. But there was one thing that always changed the atmosphere in the office. Chief Williams. He rarely came to the office, but when he did, the air shifted. People sat straighter, voices lowered. No one gossiped or laughed loudly when he was near. His presence filled the room even when he said nothing. One morning, Anaya saw him arrive. He walked in slowly with two aides behind him. Dressed in a dark kaftan, he went straight to the boardroom. Everyone grew silent. She watched him from a distance. He didn't smile. He didn't greet anyone unless necessary. But still, people respected him, maybe even feared him a little. So, this is real power, Anaya thought. She didn't know how to feel about him. He had helped her, yes, changed her life, but he was hard, quiet, cold. Still, she took her seat and continued working. She had a job to do. At home, the change was even more clear. Mama was healed. The treatment had worked. She no longer coughed all night. She had even returned to helping small children learn to read at the local church. "I'm strong again because of you, my daughter. Very soon I will be able to work and take care of you," she would say. Chuka had new school books, proper shoes, and a smile on his face every morning. The way he hugged Anaya when she came home from work made her heart melt. For the first time in a long while, the house didn't feel like a burden. It felt like a home. And Anaya? She no longer counted coins at night with tears in her eyes. Instead, she looked out the window and whispered, "Maybe, just maybe, I really do have a future." But as they say, when the rain finally stops, you should dance in the sun. Anaya had been dancing, even if only in her heart. Her work was going well. She had learned how to prepare reports, organize meetings, and speak with confidence. People now greeted her with respect. Even her old boss at the provision shop once saw her and said, "Ah, Anaya, big girl now, eh?" She just laughed. Life had become brighter, but sometimes bright things cast shadows too. One Tuesday afternoon, while going to the printing room to collect some documents, she passed by a meeting room with the door slightly open. Inside, two senior staff members were talking. They didn't see her. Their voices were low but clear. "This new land development deal in Umuze. People are complaining already." Complaining? About what? Said they weren't paid properly. Some even said they were forced off their land. But honestly, they signed the papers, didn't they? Well, the chief handled that directly. You know how he works, results first. Anaya paused, her hand on the doorknob. Umuez. That was a village not far from where her late father grew up. She stood still for a second. Forced off their land? Without proper payment? Her chest tightened. She waited, hoping to hear more, but the men began talking about something else. She slowly walked away, the printed papers forgotten for a moment. Back at her desk, her thoughts were noisy. Maybe it's just gossip, she told herself. Not everything people say is true. Besides, how would I even know? She tried to shake it off. The company did big things. Not every project could please everyone. Maybe the villagers had misunderstood. Maybe there were delays. Still, the way the men spoke didn't sit right. The chief handled that directly. You know how he works. It echoed in her ears long after she got home. That night, her mother noticed her quiet mood. Are you tired, Anaya? Yes, maybe just a little. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes.
Exactly 1 week after she heard the disturbing rumors, Anaya sat quietly at her desk. The office was quiet that evening. Most people had gone home. She had stayed back to finish some reports that Miss Lamy had asked for. She liked working late sometimes. No noise, no pressure. Just her thoughts and the soft hum of the air conditioner. She walked to the shared printer at the end of the hall. It was still warm from earlier use. A stack of papers sat in the tray, forgotten. She picked them up to move them aside, but stopped when she saw the title on the top page, Ajali Valley Resettlement Project Final Phase Report. She frowned. Ajali. That was deep in the eastern region, a farming community. She flipped the next page. Her eyes moved slowly, first confused, then frozen. The words hit her one by one. Farmers were relocated under promises of a school and health center. Land cleared for development. Project paused indefinitely. Structures abandoned. Evictions carried out with police support. No resettlement provided. Attached were copies of handwritten letters, some scanned, others typed. One from an old man named Papa Ikena, who begged for help after losing his only home. My wife is sick. We sleep outside now. The land was all we had. They promised a school, but nothing is there. Only broken blocks and weeds. Anaya's hand trembled. She sat down slowly, heart pounding. It wasn't just business. It was destruction. These weren't just reports. They were stories, real lives, real pain. Page after page, the same story. Families lied to, lands taken, promises made, then broken. And at the top of every document was the company name, Williams Holdings Foundation. The same foundation where she worked. The same Chief Williams who helped her, saved her family, gave her a second chance. She felt like the floor had shifted beneath her. This can't be right, she whispered. There must be a reason. Maybe it's not what it looks like. But no matter how she tried to soften it in her mind, the truth was there. Clear, cold, written in black and white. Mr. Williams didn't just own a big company. He owned an empire built on the pain of people like her. The discovery had hit Anya like a thunderbolt. She sat alone in the empty office, the heavy file still open in her lap. The words, the letters, the pain, they echoed inside her like a loud bell she couldn't silence. She didn't remember how long she sat there. Maybe minutes, maybe hours. But when she finally stood up, her knees felt weak. She put the papers back where she found them, not because she wanted to forget, but because her heart was already full. That night, she didn't speak much at home. Mama was chatting with Chuka about a story from school. Anaya smiled weakly and nodded when needed, but her mind was far away, in Ajali Valley, with the people whose land had been taken, whose promises had turned to dust. When everyone went to bed, she lay on her mat, eyes wide open in the dark. She couldn't sleep. She remembered their own story, how her father had died trying to earn more money, how Mama once begged the landlord for just one more week to pay the rent. She remembered that night they almost lost their room, the tears in Mama's eyes, and the shame of sleeping hungry. They had almost lost everything. And now, here she was, working for the same kind of system that had destroyed other families, just like hers. She turned over, hugging her pillow tightly, but sleep wouldn't come. How many Anayas are in Ajali right now? Crying, waiting, hoping for someone to help. And I'm here wearing clean clothes in an air-conditioned office. Tears slipped down her cheeks quietly.
In the darkness, a single decision began to rise like the sun in her chest. I need to talk to him. Not Miss Lamy. Not Mr. Gbenga. Chief Williams himself. The one who gave her the opportunity. The one she had admired. She knew it was risky. She didn't know what would happen. But she couldn't keep working like nothing had happened. Not after what she saw. The next morning, she stood in front of the mirror in her small home. She wore the same blue blouse from her first day. She looked at her reflection, her face calm but serious. If I stay quiet, then I'm part of it. But if I speak, will he listen? She didn't have the answers, but she had made her choice. Today, she would confront Chief Williams. That morning, Anaya walked past her desk without greeting anyone. Her chest was tight, her hands cold. She didn't tell Miss Lamy where she was going. She didn't need permission for this. She had asked Mr. Gbenga earlier in the morning. I need 5 minutes with Chief Williams, alone. He raised a brow. Is it urgent? Yes. He made the call. The reply came shortly after. He said, come. Now, here she was, standing outside the heavy wooden door of the executive office. She knocked once. Enter. His voice came through clearly. She stepped in. Chief Williams sat behind a long dark desk, a glass of something golden beside him. He didn't smile. He didn't look surprised. Anaya, he said simply, setting down a file. Sit. She did, slowly. For a moment, silence. Then she spoke. I saw the report, sir, about Ajali Valley. His expression didn't change. And? You promised them schools, homes, but nothing was built. The land was cleared. They were evicted. Chief Williams leaned back in his chair, folding his hands. Then he responded coldly. Do you want to stay in this world or go back to poverty? Sometimes people must lose for others to gain. And what do you want me to say, Anaya? It was a mistake? She said nothing. Let me teach you something, he continued, voice calm. Success costs something, always. Sometimes it's comfort, sometimes it's people. But sir, these are families, elders, children. They lost everything. Yes, he said without blinking. And because of that, thousands more will gain jobs, development, structure. That land will hold a tech park by next year. You think that happens without sacrifice? Anaya's eyes burned. But they were lied to. They signed papers. They were paid nothing. He stood slowly, his tone still steady but colder now. Anaya, you're young, bright, but you're also naive. If you want to make it in this world, you must stop thinking like a victim and start thinking like a builder. She stood too, voice trembling. I don't want to build anything on pain. He walked around the desk, stopping in front of her. Then you'll stay small and poor, like those villagers, like your family. The words felt like a slap. He turned away, back to his chair, picked up his glass. You've come far, but make no mistake, this world has no space for softness. If you want to throw everything away over one dusty village, go ahead. He looked her dead in the eye. But remember this, you don't get second chances twice. Her hands were shaking. Her heart felt like it would break through her chest. Is this what success means? Is this what he wanted me to become? She looked at him one last time, and without another word, she turned and walked out. She walked out of Chief Williams's office like her legs were made of glass. Outside, the air felt too bright, the hallways too quiet. She could hear her own heartbeat. Nothing had changed on the outside, but inside, everything was breaking. Her mind was spinning. Is this what it means to succeed? Am I foolish for caring? If I walk away, what will I go back to? She had a job now, a future, security. Her mother had stopped coughing. Chuka had school books. She no longer feared the sound of a landlord's knock. Could she risk losing it all? Over a village she'd never even seen? That evening, she didn't go straight home. She walked, just walked, past shops, past bike riders calling out to passengers, past boys playing with slippers and sticks. When she reached home, her mother was waiting. You came home late, Mama said gently. Anaya sat on the floor beside her and placed her head on her mother's lap. "Mama," she whispered, "what if the people we trust are not as good as they seem?" Mama didn't speak at first. She just stroked Anaya's hair. "Did something happen at work?" Anaya nodded slowly. "I found out something bad. The company, Chief Williams, they hurt people, poor people, took their land, lied to them." Her mother's eyes narrowed, but her face stayed calm. "And what did he say?" "He said it's part of success, that you can't build without breaking something." Mama let out a long sigh. Then she looked her daughter in the eye. "You know, Anaya, people like Chief Williams always find ways to sleep at night. They have money, power, and a way to excuse their own wickedness. It's normal to them." "So what do I do?" Anaya asked, voice cracking. "I worked so hard for this. I prayed. I begged. We were suffering. Now we're okay. If I speak out, if I walk away, what happens to us?" Her mother's voice was soft but steady. "Then you have to choose. Money or peace. A good bed or a clear heart. Only you can decide." "But won't he get away with it?" "He probably will," Mama said. "That's how the world is. But you don't have to be like him." That night, Anaya couldn't sleep. Again. She stared at the rusted roof, just like she used to before everything changed.
She thought of her late father, who used to say, "We may be poor, but we are not thieves." She thought of her poor mother, still holding on to her honesty, even after life had tried to break her. She thought of Chuka, and the little girls in her street who looked at her like she was already somebody important. She thought of Ajali and the letters she read. People who had no one to fight for them. By the time the sky turned pale and the first rooster crowed, Anaya had made her decision. The sun rose slowly that morning, painting the sky with soft orange and pale blue. Anaya stood in front of the mirror one last time in her neat office blouse. But today, she wasn't going to work. She was going to walk away from it. Her heart was heavy, but her mind was clear. At the office, everything looked normal. People laughing, typing, rushing past with coffee mugs. No one knew the storm going on inside her. She walked straight to the HR desk and handed over a small brown envelope. Her resignation letter. No drama. No tears. Just her name, her truth, and her decision. Mr. Kubenga looked surprised when he saw her by the elevator. "You're leaving?" "Yes," she said softly. He didn't stop her. He just nodded. "You're brave." She managed a small smile. "I'm just doing what feels right." Chief Williams was in his office when she walked in to say goodbye. He looked up, calm as ever, dressed in another sharp kaftan. "So you've made your choice," he said. "Yes," she replied, her voice steady. "You think walking away makes you better?" "No," Anaya said. "It just makes me honest." There was a pause. Then to her surprise, he leaned back in his chair and sighed heavily, almost like he was tired. "You know," he said slowly, "I built all of this from nothing. No father to guide me, no siblings, no family waiting at home, just me, and a world that didn't care whether I made it or not." Anaya stayed silent. "This world," he went on, "is not fair. You learn that quickly when no one picks you up when you fall, so you stop waiting for fairness. You build your own rules. You survive." "But does survival mean hurting others?" she asked. "Sometimes, yes," he said without blinking. "You cannot fix everything that feels wrong. If you try, you'll spend your life broken, poor, powerless. You think you can change the world with honesty, but the world doesn't reward honesty. It rewards results." Anaya's eyes were steady now. "Maybe not always," she said, "but I want to live in a way where I can sleep at night." Chief Williams looked at her, long and hard. "You're still young. One day you'll see what I mean. When your kindness gets crushed, when the world spits you out. Maybe," she replied. "But I'd rather live with less and sleep in peace than become someone I won't even recognize." He gave her a cold nod and picked up the same crystal glass he always seemed to be holding. "You'll regret this." Anaya smiled softly. "Maybe. But if I do, at least it will be my choice." And just like that, she turned and walked out. No applause, no grand exit, just the quiet sound of her shoes on the tile, leaving behind a world that almost changed her completely. Her chest felt tight, but her steps were light,
She had no job now, no big office. But what she did have? Her peace. And that was worth everything. Life after Williams Holdings was quiet but not empty. Anaya returned to a simpler rhythm. The early morning walks to school, the smell of Mama's soup in the evening, the soft laughter of Chuka reading out loud from his new storybook. There were no glass elevators or business suits now. But there was something better. Peace. She used part of her small savings to finally enroll for her post-secondary exams. Her classmates were younger, but she didn't mind. She had waited long enough, and now she was ready. But Anaya knew her journey wasn't just about passing exams anymore. It was about giving back. On weekends, she began volunteering with a youth NGO that fought for farmers and landowners who had been cheated or evicted, just like those in Ajali Valley. She had seen how companies like Williams Holdings operated. She had learned their language, contracts, loopholes, land transfers, silence money. Now, she used that same knowledge to protect the powerless. "We're not against progress," she would say during small community meetings. "We just want it to be fair." Soon, Anaya started her own small community group. It wasn't big, just a borrowed classroom, a whiteboard and plastic chairs, but it was enough. She called it Rooted Voices. There, she helped villagers write petitions, understand their rights, and speak out. Some days, she taught children how to read. Other days, she helped families file cases against powerful companies who tried to force them off their land. Her name began to spread, not as the girl who once worked for Chief Williams, but as the young woman standing up for justice. Something inside her had grown strong. A purpose. A quiet fire. Anaya didn't want riches anymore. She wanted something bigger, a future rooted in honesty, built on fairness, surrounded by community. She believed that people could rise without crushing others, that leaders should be held accountable, not worshipped for their wealth. She believed that even a small voice spoken with truth could echo louder than money. And that belief, it changed everything. A few months later, the classroom was full, plastic chairs packed tightly, students sitting shoulder to shoulder, notebooks balanced on their laps. Some leaned forward. Others just watched in quiet awe. At the front stood Anaya. She wore a simple dress and sandals, no microphone, no slideshow, just her voice and her story. She began, smiling gently. "I thought success was about money, about big offices, shiny buildings, powerful people calling you by name." The students listened closely. They had heard about her. "But I learned something," she continued. "If success comes at the cost of your heart, it's not really success." She looked around at the young faces. "Doing the right thing is never easy," she said slowly, "but it's always worth it." Applause broke out, gentle at first, then stronger. A few clapped with wide eyes, others just nodded quietly, like her words were sinking deep into places that needed them. As she stepped down, one of the girls whispered, "I want to be like her." Anaya heard it, and she smiled. Outside, the evening sun painted the sky gold. Children played nearby. A farmer passed with a basket of yams. Life was still simple, still hard, but full of meaning. She walked home through familiar streets, not in a fancy car, not with an assistant by her side, just her and her thoughts. But this time she felt rich in a different way. About 3 weeks later, Anaya received her exam results. She had passed with flying colors. Not long after that, she got a letter, a full scholarship to a respected university. She knew she would one day help build better systems for people like the families in Ajali Valley. She didn't know what lay ahead, what roads would be easy or which ones would test her again. But she knew one thing. She was willing to walk that path with honesty, no matter what. She never heard from Chief Williams again. Maybe he continued to thrive. Maybe he became even more powerful, like so many others who walk over others to rise. But Anaya? She slept well at night, because she chose integrity over comfort, truth over silence, people over profit. And that was her real victory. Anaya's story has come to an end. A girl who had nothing found herself in a world of power, wealth, and opportunity, only to discover that the shine came with shadows. She could have kept quiet. She could have closed her eyes, ignored the truth, and continued climbing the ladder. But she didn't. She walked away. She chose to live with less comfort but more peace. She chose to fight for people who had no voice, using everything she had learned to build good, not just profit. She may not have the riches of the world, but she has something greater. A clear conscience, a true purpose, a heart that sleeps in peace. Now we ask you, what would you do if you were in Ania's shoes? Would you keep silent and enjoy the life of wealth? Or would you walk away from it all, with nothing but your honesty and your head held high? Only you can answer.